You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. I'm Michael Glenn Moore, Scott's co-host. Scott, we've been on a break and things are looking good. I know I'm very relaxed and ready to get back into the swing of things. How about you?
Well, you know, we called it a hiatus. You called it semi-retirement. We took a break. I think one day I even thought, well, have I run out of people to talk to? And, just other things distracted me. But so I'm glad we had some time to get away but did miss you, Michael. And it's good to see you. And we have a great guest today, probably one of our second or third youngest we've ever seen. So we'll use small words and we'll talk. So anyway, it's really good to be here, everyone. Good to see you. Sorry we took some time off, but you always know you can reach us if you need to. So welcome to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. And don't forget, you can always reach me at 619-993-2738, 619-993-2738. And do call or text. Let us know what's going on, or you can always Google me, Scott H. Silverman, or you can email me at yourcrisiscoach.com, anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. And we'll help you with whatever is going on in your world. And God knows we've got a world with stuff going on right now. We're not going to talk about that today because we're going to go right into meeting our guest. So today we have someone real special. Her name is Carly Illeck. And Carly and what I'm going to do, Carly, because I want to turn it around. Normally as the co-host, I get a chance to embarrass our guests, but I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you and then how we met, because I think how we met was kind of unique, and I appreciated that opportunity to meet you. And we have had you scheduled on this show a couple times, but with obviously being a big star that you are, you had a lot of conflicts. So we're really honored to have you here today. So Carly, tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us how we met, and then we'll go into some of our questions.
Okay, well, thank you for the very kind introduction. I'm Carly Illeck. I am the CEO and founder of Drop Top Company. We're an apparel company that donates 10% of our proceeds toward battling the opioid epidemic. And Scott and I met at approximately 5:45, 6 a.m. one morning when I reached out to a stranger on LinkedIn who I saw was also trying to fight the opioid epidemic. And it was basically a 9-paragraph long ramble that could have just consisted of, why does no one care? Why is no one else doing anything? And yeah, we've maintained contact ever since.
Okay. So
it was responded to with, please call me.
Which I did, and we've had some great conversations. You've introduced me to some great people. We've met some great people together. And I know you've read my book, The Opioid Epidemic, which I appreciate. And I know you shared it with others. So Carly, tell us, you have a couple things going on in your world. Tell us about what is it you kind of do, your 9-to-5 thing, and then what is it you do with your philanthropic efforts and your community commitment? Because I think those are interrelated, but they're very important, and they're separate, but yet, I think it's important for people to understand a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing, because I think it's pretty remarkable for someone your age to be this involved with making a commitment to help others.
Well, my 9-to-5, I used to work in a hospital just I've always wanted to be in the medical field, specifically neuroscience. And then starting in 2012, I started losing friends to opioids. And then about 2 years ago, my 9 to 5 became Drop Top Company, which is me sewing, learning to screen print, basically everything that is required to run an apparel company by yourself.
Are those your products behind you on the wall?
Oh yeah, this is my drop office.
Great. So tell us then about Drop Top. Tell us more about that, what that organization does, and how you got involved, because it's kind of unique, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so my friend Brandon in 2018, he went to Goodwill, bought a fedora, cut the top off of it, and I don't think after that day I ever saw him not wearing it. And I thought it was so weird. I remember looking at it being like, that is so heinous. Why would you wear that? And then I remember playing pool with him like maybe 2 months later, and I put it on and I was like, oh wait, this is kind of cool. I like this. I like the way this looks. And then after that, he was like, do you know how to hand sew? And I said, yes. He gave me this whole vision of creating a company surrounded or like comprised of his hats that he invented. Unfortunately, he passed away before he could create said business. So I, with the permission of his mom, patented the hell out of it and created the company, and did so in his honor by donating money towards the opioid epidemic and getting super involved with working with the foundations and making sure that the foundations get as much money as possible.
So why the opioid epidemic? Because it's clearly it's a problem. We know that. Mike and I talk about it, every week, and it's a crisis in our community and across the country right now. But why are you involved? What is it that resonated with you with wanting to give back and to help?
So that was unfortunately how Brandon passed away. He bought a Xanax on the street, if you will, and he did not wake up after that because it was predominantly fentanyl, which is increasingly so the case with a lot of these prescription street drugs. So yeah, and he, not to put a number on him or devalue him as a human, but that was my 14th opioid related loss.
Wow.
I was, let's see, 22, 23 at that time. So it kind of felt like his invention that he shared with me and wanted me to help him with gave me a means of screaming, whereas by myself I could only talk.
So
yeah.
So you've lost 14 friends or people you knew at least pretty well to the opioid crisis?
In 2018, yes. Now, unfortunately, I am at 16, which I think in and of itself is exemplary of the increasing rate of this problem.
Right. So from your perspective as a young person, we won't ask you how old you are because we know based on the math, what you just sent us, you're probably in your early 20s. But what's going on, do you think, in your generation with kids your age, in their 20s and mid 20s and maybe late 20s and maybe even late teens? What's taking place with, as smart as I think people are today, that there's still this because I get asked this all the time by families, why would somebody take a medication that they didn't know where it came from? And I said, that's a great question. And I said, I spend most of my waking hours when I'm talking about this crisis on how we educate people. I mean, look, you wouldn't walk in front of a speeding car. You wouldn't walk in front of somebody who's about to shoot an arrow into a tree. We wouldn't go to the rooftops to go, I think I can fly. We don't normally do that. So why do you think, what's taking place with your, I don't want to say your generation and then, kind of say that, because it's not isolated to it, but it seems to be a late teens to early 20s right now is seeing a huge surge with, people expiring from counterfeit medication.
I actually would semi refute that and say that it is a problem that has always existed in groups of this range. I guess I don't want to say my range, but young people all the way up until whatever late 20s, whatever. The invincibility complex has always been prevalent.
Hang on, which part are
I
you refuting? You're talking about the actual
the fact that
opioid?
it's this right now, it's like this group of young people. I think my parents, you perhaps, oh, you, I actually know, in fact, like there's this invincibility complex that you have when you're young, where you're never going to be the one, which is something that multiple of my friends who ended up being that one who passed away told me, come on, Carly, I'm not going to die.
Right.
And
We all believe we're going to live forever, or we all believe
exactly,
that that
yeah.
can
So
never
I
happen
would
to us.
say that every generation of teenagers, young people have the same belief. It's just, unfortunately, at this point in time, there's people giving fentanyl out. I would think it's more of a victim of circumstance than a generational or stupidity thing.
Well,
I mean,
part of that I agree with. I think, situational is right. And I think accident, I mean, the term accidental overdose is very common now to where somebody's at a
yeah,
party, takes a pill, and that pill happens to be cut with fentanyl, unbeknownst to them. They think they're taking Xanax, they think they're taking a Valium, they think they're taking, some other medication, Ritalin or Adderall or something, and it's cut with fentanyl. And that fentanyl is poison today. That's the big issue, is the stuff that we're seeing that's cut in drugs is poison. And,
a lot of the times when we're having like pop-ups and stuff and people ask like why the opioid epidemic, and I tell them the story of Brandon, whatever, they're like, that was just something that we didn't even think about when I was your age or younger. It was just like, oh, here's this probably is what it is. And I think that same mentality exists today, but with unfortunately fatal repercussions.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly something that obviously we need to continue to talk about, because the more education people had. I just spoke to somebody yesterday that I was one of my clients from like almost 15 years ago, and she called and she's living in this homeless arena now as a converted hotel to apartments for homeless people. And she said, there are more people dying now, Scott, with methamphetamine than I've ever seen before. And we don't understand it. And I said, well, a lot of the methamphetamine, especially what we're hearing in San Diego, we hear it from the coroner's office, from the criminal justice side, because when they arrest people, they do testing and they know what's in their system. So I said to her, she said, what can I do? I said, well, warn people that, they may be potentially putting something in their body. They don't know what it is. So and she said she's experienced over 12 people dying that she knows in the last 6 months. And, she's been homeless for a couple of years, because we've spoken a few times. I mean, homeless, she's chosen to be, over here, over there, but it is scary. And that's the part that I'm trying to find a better mousetrap to get the information out to people. But that being said, why are you doing this? Because, you have a hyper sense now of the opioid crisis, and
Oh yeah.
and you've obviously your own life experience with friends. So what makes you, because some people say, oh, she's not a clinician, she's not a psychiatrist, who is she to tell others? But I think you are one of those people that should be talking to others. But tell us why.
Well, no, I do not have any qualifications, so to speak, except for bachelor's in psychology, but that doesn't even begin to relate. I think it's the personal experience of watching somebody who's having fun to somebody who's having fun with problems to watching somebody just have problems with their alcohol, drug usage. And by no means do I think that it's possible for people to just not do drugs. Like, everybody is always going to have this invincibility complex, as we've seen through history up until now. But I think now we need to pay more attention and really like drive it in. If you're going to participate in doing drugs, please know what you're putting in your body. Like, just make sure you've tested it. it doesn't always make sense in the immediate because you're sometimes out or whatever, but if you don't know what it is, probably don't, I guess would be the standard to go by. And why me? I don't know. I guess I feel myself qualified enough to speak on it because I've hurt enough and I've spoken to enough people who have been hurt by this. And while I may not have qualifications as a clinician, I have qualifications as a person who has been heavily impacted. And because of what I do with Drop Top, I have to constantly be speaking to people who are being impacted by it.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer. And people are speaking to you about it, which means you're getting real-time information from families all the time,
All the
which
time.
puts you ahead of the curve, if you will. So tell me, although your desire to contribute to the fight against the opioid epidemic preceded the creation of the company, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Oh God. Somebody actually asked me this very recently, and I thought back to being in college, and if you had told me that I would own a apparel company today, I would absolutely laugh in your face. Like, I'm supposed to be in med school, definitely not here, but I guess by definition, sure. My fiance joked and she said, "You're more of an entrepreneur. I think you just kind of jumped into it because you felt it's what needed to happen." Like, there was no forethought. And as much as I don't like to pat myself on the back for being impulsive, I think that I really did just entrepreneur. Not to say Purdue. Oh God.
No. Yeah,
That's another story.
yeah, it's interesting. They're big. One of the biggest trials is coming up in the next week or two, back in Ohio, I believe. So what aspects?
That documentary I sent you, the Crime of the Century one?
No, but I know a lot about it. I didn't watch it again, but I've heard a lot about it. And I'm looking at Dope Sick right now on Hulu. That was the one written by Beth Macy. She wrote that book, and it's now a movie with Keaton. And I just heard that Sam Quinones is coming out with a new book, and he's got an HBO special coming out. So
all of a sudden, there's like 50 documentaries at one time.
Yeah, and we'll see. One day, hopefully, they'll call me as well. So tell me, the aspects of the epidemic. What aspects of the epidemic do your foundations focus on, and how do they align with what you believe to be the most important factors of halting or slowing down the epidemic?
I personally think, as I previously mentioned, it's just knowing that you can't trust that something is exactly what it is. I think that education isn't as simple as it used to be in terms of drugs. Not everything is black and white. You're not going to be in your health class learning about this is ecstasy, this is meth, this is heroin, because unfortunately people who create those drugs have blurred the lines between this being this and that being that. So I think it's more so of an education in that you need to make sure you yourself are educated if you are going to participate in that. And maybe even if you're not, just so you can see if your friends are making mistakes like that. I have a pack of 1,000 fentanyl strips in my office that, just like, if a friend is ever telling me they plan on doing something, I'm just like, just make sure you have this, please. Thank you. I appreciate it. But the foundations that we donate to, the Christopher D. Smithers Foundation, they work on, basically, they have a campaign called Stop the Spiral, which is where our direct donations go. And it's about the slip from prescription opioid abuse to no longer having access to those prescriptions and then moving on to heroin, fentanyl, what have you. And then the Community Outreach Alliance, Thrive Alive, they are more centric around aspects of prevention in high-risk youth communities and educating them as to, what the realities of this matter are. And also they take kids out of those situations where they have parents who are doing these things and don't want to be around that anymore, I suppose.
Okay. So November 14th coming up
Yeah.
in a month,
Years.
marks 2 years of Drop Top. Do you feel your company and you have contributed to the noteworthy, any noteworthy changes, and is it worth it?
Yes, it is worth it. That's indisputable. Whether it's been worth it in the grand scheme, I can't speak to, but it has been worth it to me. Even with just 10% of our proceeds, we have raised over $3,200 in just under 2 years, which I think is crazy. I can't even believe that happened. I mean, it is my 9 to 5. If I were to turn the camera to the left, it's my sewing machine. You are currently propped up on my screen press. My heat press is back there. There's clothes everywhere here. And it's a lot, but at the last pop-up event we did where we showcase our stuff with a bunch of other vendors, this guy on a bike came in and he was checking out our stuff, asking a couple questions, whatever. And he said, well, I'm not going to buy anything, and then he pulled a crumpled up 20 out of his pocket. And he's like, 5 years ago, I would have spent this on drugs and put $20 in our tip jar and left. And that I was sold then. Like, I was like, it does mean something. It does affect people. Thank God I haven't wasted the past full 2 years of my life doing something that hasn't touched anybody.
Yeah. So what does your family think of all this?
In the beginning, it was just, how's that hat thing? Which I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But now we just were, actually, we were a featured designer in the SF Fashion Week fashion show. So I think they're taking it a little more seriously now. They probably would prefer that I was still in school, which I do intend on going back to, but this is more something that makes me feel good and feel like I can do good and be helpful in the immediate.
Yeah. Well, Carly, I always like to leave the best question for last. I'm going to give it to Michael, but I'm personally very proud of you. We talk as frequently as we can. It's some of the weirdest times of the day and week, but that's okay. And I've always enjoyed our conversations, although you call me with some weird shit, but I
gotta give you the weird shit.
I appreciate it though, and the fact, and by the way, the title I'd give you is social entrepreneur. It's more than just an entrepreneur. You have a social cause that it seems like is woven into everything you do every day. Meaning, whenever you're at the sewing machine, when you're making a pattern or you're creating a hat, or at least I picked that up from you, that everything that you do is going to make a difference, and that is a gift.
Save it. As cliche as it is, save at least one person from losing that one friend. Let that one friend create the business he was intended to.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm so glad you're here today. And Michael, what's on your mind, brother?
Well, I'd like to know just a little bit about Drop Top. Is it available only online now, or do you have plans on getting it into stores?
We are entirely self-funded, and by self-funded, I mean myself. So I do not have any plans on opening a retail store unless we start bringing in the big bucks, but we are available online, and we do pop-up markets in Northern California. Hopefully I'll take it back down to Southern California where I'm from with time, but yeah, we're available at droptopcompany.com, and also you can shop on Instagram.
Okay, I'll make sure to have all those links in the show notes. So do you have a quote for us today to see us out? Or
yes, I do. And it is actually our company's slogan, if you will, which is feel the breeze, celebrate life.